The sound of thundering hooves broke the stillness of the midnight prairie as 4 young women fled across the open terrain, their breaths ragged and faces streaked with tears and dirt. The eldest, Zara Kinnell, glanced back over her shoulder at the small farmhouse receding into the distance, her heart pounding with equal measures of fear and desperate hope that this time they were truly free. It was May 1878 in the Idaho Territory, and the Kinnell sisters had finally escaped the prison that had once been their home. For years, they had endured their stepfather's brutal reign after their mother passed from consumption. What began as harsh words and occasional slaps had descended into regular beatings and worse as the girls grew older. When Zara turned 21 last week, she knew it was time they wouldn't survive another year. "Hurry, Zara," hissed 18-year-old Zoe, her blonde hair streaming behind her as she urged her horse forward. "I think I hear someone coming." Behind them rode the youngest sisters, 19-year-old Zelda, clutching the reins with white knuckles, and 20-year-old Zoe's twin, Zola, whose normally cheerful face was set in grim determination. "We're almost to the tree line," Zara called back, leaning forward to pat her mare's heaving neck. "Once we reach the forest, they won't be able to track us easily." The sisters had waited until their stepfather had passed out from whiskey before stealing his money, gathering their few precious belongings, and taking 4 of his horses. They knew the consequences would be deadly if they were caught. Their stepfather, Vernon Blackfield, was not only vicious but influential in their small town of Granite Creek. The sheriff was his drinking companion, and no one would dare stand against him to help 4 penniless young women. The forest loomed ahead, a dark wall against the star-speckled sky. As they plunged into the shelter of the pines, the temperature dropped noticeably. Zara finally allowed her horse to slow, listening intently for sounds of pursuit. "I think we're safe for now," she said, her voice shaking with exhaustion, "but we need to keep moving. Challies is still 30 miles north." "Why Challies?" Zelda asked, pulling her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders. "Nobody knows us there." "That's exactly why," Zara replied, "and I heard there's work to be found in the silver mines nearby. Men with money and no time to cook or clean for themselves. Or wives," Zola added with a small smile that didn't reach her tired eyes. "We're not going there to find husbands," Zara said firmly. "We're going there to disappear and build a new life, together. Free." They rode through the night, stopping only when the horses needed rest or when Zelda, whose health had always been fragile, needed to catch her breath. By dawn, they had covered nearly 20 miles, following game trails and occasionally the rough road that led north. As the sun crested the eastern mountains, painting the sky in delicate pinks and golds, the sisters emerged from the forest onto a grassy plateau. Below them stretched a valley with a meandering river, and in the distance, they could just make out the scattered buildings of Challies. "We made it," Zelda whispered, her face pale with fatigue. "Not quite yet," Zara cautioned. "We need to find shelter and decide what to do next. We can't just ride into town looking like this. People will ask questions." "I'm so hungry," Zola admitted, pressing a hand to her stomach. "We should have taken more food." "There wasn't time," Zoe reminded her, "and we had to travel light." Zara reached into her saddlebag and divided the last of their stale bread. "This will have to do for now. Once we're closer to town, I'll figure something out." They descended into the valley, staying away from the main road until they reached the river. There, they allowed their horses to drink while they washed the dirt from their faces and hands. "Listen," Zoe said suddenly, her head tilting. "Horses." Zara's heart leapt to her throat as she heard the unmistakable sound of an approaching rider. "Quick! Into those trees!" They had barely concealed themselves and their mounts in a thick stand of cottonwoods when a lone rider appeared, following the river's edge. He rode tall in the saddle, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the morning sky. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face, but they could see he wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy, not the finery of a town-dwelling gentleman. As he drew closer, he suddenly reined in his horse, scanning the trees where they hid. "I know you're there," he called out, his voice deep but not threatening. "I mean no harm, but you might as well show yourselves. This is private land." The sisters exchanged panicked glances. "What do we do?" Zelda whispered. Zara squared her shoulders. "Stay here. I'll talk to him. If anything happens, ride for Challies as fast as you can." Before her sisters could protest, Zara emerged from the trees leading her horse. She stood as tall as her 5'6" frame allowed, hoping she appeared calmer than she felt. "Good morning, sir," she said, keeping her distance. "We're just passing through. We didn't realize this was private property." The man studied her for a long moment, his eyes taking in her travel-worn appearance, the quality of her dress, and the tension in her stance. He removed his hat, revealing a surprisingly youthful face, perhaps 26 or 27 years old, with piercing blue eyes and a strong jawline softened by the beginnings of a beard. "The name's Quinn O'Malley," he said, inclining his head slightly. "This is my ranch you're crossing." "I apologize for the intrusion, Mr. O'Malley," Zara replied, her mind racing for a plausible explanation. "My sisters and I are traveling to Challies to visit our aunt." One of Quinn's eyebrows rose skeptically. "Your sisters? And they're hiding in the trees still?" Zara hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "We've had some unfortunate encounters on the road. We're being cautious." Something in her tone must have reached him because his expression softened. "You're running from someone." It wasn't a question. Zara opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it again, suddenly too tired to maintain the pretense. She simply nodded, her eyes dropping to the ground. Quinn dismounted, keeping his movements slow and deliberate as if approaching a skittish colt. "Look, Miss Kinnell. Zara Kinnell." "Miss Kinnell, I don't know what trouble you're in, but you and your sisters look like you could use a meal and some rest. My ranch house is about 2 miles upriver. You're welcome to come back with me. Get yourselves sorted out." Zara regarded him warily. "That's very kind, but we couldn't impose." "It's not an imposition," he assured her. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Perkins, would welcome the company. She's always complaining the place is too quiet." A twig snapped, and Zara turned to see Zelda stumbling from the trees, her face flushed with fever. Zara rushed to catch her sister as she swayed. "Zelda, what's wrong?" "I don't feel well, Zara," Zelda murmured, leaning heavily against her. "Everything's spinning." Quinn was beside them in an instant, his strong hands helping to support Zelda's weight. "She's burning up," he said, his brow furrowed with concern. "How long has she been like this?" "She was fine last night," Zara said, panic rising in her voice. "Maybe a little tired, but we all were." By now, Zoe and Zola had emerged from hiding, their faces etched with worry. Quinn made a quick decision. "She needs to lie down and get some proper care." "My offer stands. Come back to the ranch. Mrs. Perkins was a nurse during the war. She'll know what to do." Zara looked at her younger sisters, seeing the exhaustion and fear in their eyes, then down at Zelda, who had begun to shiver despite the morning warmth. They had little choice. "All right, Mr. O'Malley," she said quietly. "We accept your hospitality. Thank you." Quinn nodded, then gently lifted Zelda as if she weighed nothing at all. "I'll take her on my horse. Can you all ride a little further?" They nodded, and soon they were following Quinn upstream, the mountains rising on either side of them like protective walls. After about 20 minutes, they rounded a bend in the river, and the O'Malley ranch came into view. It was larger than Zara had expected, a two-story log house with a wide porch, several outbuildings, and corrals containing horses and cattle. Smoke curled from the stone chimney, and as they approached, the front door opened to reveal a stout woman in her 60s, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Quinn O'Malley, what on earth?" she called, wiping her hands on her apron as she hurried down the steps. "Mrs. Perkins, we have guests in need of assistance," Quinn replied, dismounting carefully with Zelda still in his arms. "This young lady has a fever. Her sisters could use some food and rest as well." Mrs. Perkins' sharp eyes took in the situation at a glance, and her expression softened. "Bring her in, then. I'll heat some water and prepare the guest room." As Quinn carried Zelda into the house, the housekeeper turned to the remaining sisters. "Come along, girls. You look dead on your feet. Whatever trouble you're in can wait until after breakfast." Zara, Zoe, and Zola exchanged glances of relief mixed with lingering apprehension. They had found shelter, but for how long? And what would happen when their stepfather inevitably came looking for them? For now, though, they followed Mrs. Perkins into the warm, welcoming kitchen, the smell of fresh bread and coffee enveloping them like a promise of better days to come. Inside the O'Malley ranch house, time seemed to slow. Mrs. Perkins bustled about the kitchen, serving up plates of eggs, bacon, and biscuits with gravy while Quinn carried Zelda upstairs to the guest room. The remaining sisters ate ravenously, hardly speaking as they satisfied their hunger. "When did you last have a proper meal, child?" Mrs. Perkins asked Zola, who was on her third biscuit. "Yesterday morning," Zola admitted. "We left in a hurry." Mrs. Perkins nodded knowingly but didn't press for details. Instead, she refilled their coffee cups and set out a jar of honey for the biscuits. Upstairs, Quinn helped Mrs. Perkins settle Zelda into a clean bed. The older woman examined the girl efficiently, clucking her tongue at the fading bruises on her arms. "Pneumonia, I suspect," she told Quinn quietly. "And this child has been mistreated. Look at these marks." Quinn's jaw tightened as he observed the bruises. "I wondered as much, from the way they're acting. Scared rabbits, the lot of them." "Well, they're safe here for now," Mrs. Perkins declared. "I'll brew some willow bark tea for the fever and keep cool compresses on her forehead. You'd best go down and reassure the others." When Quinn returned to the kitchen, he found Zara standing by the window, watching the ranch hands going about their morning chores while her sisters finished eating. "Your sister is resting," he told her. "Mrs. Perkins thinks it's pneumonia, but she's confident she can bring the fever down." Zara's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you. I don't know what we would have done if you don't need to thank me," Quinn interrupted gently. "Or explain anything right now. You all need rest." "But we can't just stay here," Zara protested. "We need to get to Challies, find work. Challies will still be there in a few days," Quinn said. "Your sister isn't going anywhere in her condition, and frankly, none of you look fit for travel right now." Zoe and Zola had gone quiet, watching the exchange with hopeful eyes. "Mr. O'Malley," Zara began. "Quinn," he corrected. "Mr. O'Malley was my father, Quinn," she amended. "You don't know us. You don't know what kind of trouble we might bring to your door." "I can't in good conscience, Miss Kinnell," he said, his voice firm but kind. "I'm not in the habit of turning away people in need. Whatever trouble you're in, we can figure it out together once you've had some rest and your sister is on the mend." Zara studied his face, looking for signs of deceit or ulterior motives, but found only sincere concern. It had been so long since anyone had shown them genuine kindness that she hardly knew how to respond. "One day," she finally conceded. "We'll stay one day and then we need to make plans." Quinn's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "We'll revisit that discussion tomorrow then. Now Mrs. Perkins has prepared rooms for you all. I suggest you take advantage of them." The sisters couldn't argue with that. They followed Mrs. Perkins upstairs, where she showed them to 2 additional guest rooms, each with a washstand already filled with warm water. "Clean clothes in the wardrobe," she informed them. "They may not fit perfectly, but they're better than what you're wearing. And there's a bathing room at the end of the hall if you're interested." "Whose clothes?" Zara asked, running her fingers over a simple but well-made calico dress laid out on the bed. "They belong to Quinn's sister, Maeve," Mrs. Perkins replied, her voice softening. "She passed 3 years ago. Consumption. Quinn keeps her things, though I've told him it's not healthy to preserve a shrine. Maybe it's good they'll finally be of use to someone." After Mrs. Perkins left, the sisters took turns bathing, luxuriating in the rare opportunity to be truly clean. The hot water soothed their aching muscles, and the soft, clean nightgowns felt like heaven against their skin. Zara checked on Zelda, who was sleeping fitfully under Mrs. Perkins' watchful eye, before retiring to her own room. She meant to stay awake, to plan their next move, but the moment her head touched the pillow, exhaustion claimed her. She woke hours later to the sound of rain pattering against the window. For a moment, she was disoriented, unused to the comfort of a real bed after months of sleeping on a thin pallet in the attic room she shared with her sisters. Then memory flooded back, and she sat up with a jolt. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, and outside the window, dusk was falling. She had slept the day away. Pulling on a robe she found hanging on the door, Zara hurried to check on Zelda. She found her sister awake, propped up on pillows, her cheeks still flushed but her eyes clearer. "Zara," Zelda greeted weakly. "This place is so nice, and Mrs. Perkins has been wonderful. She's been telling me stories about the war." Mrs. Perkins, who was adjusting the compress on Zelda's forehead, smiled. "Your sister's fever has broken, but she's still weak. She'll need a few days of rest before she's fit to travel." "A few days," Zara repeated, her anxiety returning. "But we already agreed to take things one day at a time," came Quinn's voice from the doorway. He stood there with a tray of food, his tall frame filling the space. "I've brought some supper. Chicken soup for Miss Zelda and a more substantial meal for you, Miss Kinnell." "Zara," she corrected automatically. "If I'm to call you Quinn, then you should use my given name." He smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. "Zara it is. Your other sisters are already downstairs enjoying Mrs. Perkins' cooking. Would you care to join them, or would you prefer to eat up here with Zelda?" "I'll stay with Zelda," Zara decided, accepting the tray. "Thank you." After Quinn left, Zara helped Zelda sit up to eat her soup. "What do you think of him?" she asked quietly. Zelda considered the question as she sipped her broth. "I think he's kind, really kind, not just pretending. Mrs. Perkins says he's the most decent man in the territory. His father was one of the first settlers here, built this ranch from nothing. And no wife." Zara asked, trying to sound merely curious. "There was someone once," Mrs. Perkins said. "A girl from back east who came to teach at the school in Challies. But she couldn't handle frontier life and went back home after a year. That was 4 or 5 years ago." Zara nodded, filing away this information as she ate her own meal-tender roast beef, potatoes, and green beans that must have come from a carefully tended kitchen garden. It was the best food she'd had in years. "We can't stay here long," she told Zelda, keeping her voice low. "Vernon will be looking for us, and I won't bring trouble to these people. They've been too good to us." Zelda's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry I got sick. I'm always holding us back." "Don't say that," Zara said fiercely, taking her sister's hand. "None of this is your fault. We'll stay until you're stronger, and then we'll figure something out." But as the days passed, Zara found it increasingly difficult to maintain her resolve to leave quickly. The O'Malley Ranch became a haven of peace and recovery for the Kinnell sisters. Zelda's health improved steadily under Mrs. Perkins' care. Zoe discovered a talent for cooking and began helping in the kitchen, while Zola, who had always loved animals, spent hours in the stables with Quinn's horses. As for Zara, she found herself drawn to Quinn's company. He was unlike any man she had ever known, thoughtful, gentle despite his physical strength, and possessed of a quiet intelligence that revealed itself in their evening conversations by the fire. 1 week after their arrival, Zara joined Quinn on the porch after dinner. The summer evening was mild, with fireflies beginning to blink in the gathering dusk. "Your sisters seem to be settling in well," Quinn observed, leaning against the railing. "Too well," Zara sighed. "They're forgetting that this is temporary." Quinn studied her profile in the fading light. "Does it have to be?" Zara turned to him, startled. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you're all welcome to stay," he said simply. "Zoe has become Mrs. Perkins' right hand in the kitchen. Zola has a way with the horses that my stable master, Jackson, can't stop praising. Even Zelda, now that she's recovering, has been helping with the mending and showing a knack for bookkeeping." "And me?" Zara asked, her heart beating faster. "What would I do?" Quinn's eyes held hers. "Whatever you want. This ranch is large enough to need all kinds of help. Or you could rest, recover from whatever you're running from." He paused. "Zara, I know you're afraid of something or someone. Maybe it would help to tell me what it is." Zara turned away, gazing out at the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. "Our mother died 3 years ago," she began quietly. "Consumption, like your sister. Our father had died years before that, and mother had remarried. Vernon Blackfield seemed decent enough at first, but after mother died he changed. Or maybe he just stopped pretending." She hugged herself, the memories washing over her like a cold tide. "He was cruel, especially when he drank, which was most of the time. He'd beat us for the smallest things: a meal not ready on time, a shirt not properly ironed, sometimes for no reason at all. He made us work the farm like slaves while he drank and gambled away what little money there was." Quinn's hand came to rest lightly on her shoulder, offering silent support. "As we got older, it got worse," she continued, her voice dropping even lower. "He started looking at us differently. Especially Zoe and Zelda. I tried to protect them, to keep his attention on me instead, but," her voice broke. "Last week, he told me he'd arranged marriages for Zoe and Zelda. To 2 of his gambling friends, men 3 times their age, who looked at them the same way Vernon did. I knew we had to leave." "So you took his horses and whatever money you could find," Quinn finished for her. Zara nodded, turning back to face him. "He'll come after us. Not because he cares about us, but because no one takes from Vernon Blackfield. He's well connected in Granite Creek. The sheriff is his friend. No one there would help us." "But you're not in Granite Creek anymore," Quinn pointed out. "You're in Cowboy's territory now, and Sheriff Reed is a fair man who doesn't take kindly to abusers." "It doesn't matter," Zara insisted. "Vernon won't let this go. When he finds us, and he'll either drag us back or kill us for the humiliation. And anyone who tries to help us will be in danger too." Quinn's expression hardened. "Let him try. This ranch has withstood Shoshone raids, claim jumpers, and worse. A bully like Vernon Blackfield doesn't scare me." "He should," Zara said softly. "He's dangerous, Quinn. So am I when it comes to protecting those I care about." He took her hand, his calloused palm warm against her skin. "Zara, I'm not asking you to put your faith in me blindly. All I'm saying is that you and your sisters have a place here for as long as you want it. You don't have to keep running." The sincerity in his eyes made her throat tighten with emotion. It had been so long since she had allowed herself to trust to hope for anything beyond mere survival. The prospect was as terrifying as it was tempting. "I need to think," she whispered, "and talk to my sisters." Quinn nodded, releasing her hand. "Of course. Take all the time you need, I'll be here." Later that night, Zara gathered her sisters in Zelda's room, which had become their unofficial meeting place during their stay. "Quinn has offered to let us stay," she told them, "permanently if we want." "Really?" Zoe's face lit up. "Oh, Zara, can we? I love it here. Mrs. Perkins has been teaching me to make pies, and she says I have a natural touch with pastry. And Jackson is going to let me help train the new foals," Zola added eagerly. "He says I have a gift for it." Even Zelda, still pale but much improved, smiled. "It's so peaceful here. And Quinn is such a gentleman. Nothing like—" She couldn't bring herself to say Vernon's name. "But what about when Vernon finds us?" Zara asked, voicing her deepest fear. "He won't just let us go, you know that." The sisters fell silent, the specter of their stepfather casting a shadow over their newfound happiness. "What if he doesn't find us?" Zoe finally suggested. "Challies is a long way from Granite Creek, and not many people travel between the two. We could change our names, start fresh." "We can't hide forever," Zara sighed. "Maybe we don't need to," Zelda said thoughtfully. "Maybe we just need to hide long enough to establish ourselves, to have people here who will stand with us if he does come." Zara considered this. The idea had merit. In Granite Creek, they had been isolated with no friends or allies. Vernon had made sure of that, keeping them virtual prisoners on the farm. But here in Challies, they could build connections, become part of the community. "Quinn seems to think Sheriff Reed would help us," she mused. "See." Zola exclaimed. "It could work, Zara. We could be safe here." Looking at her sisters' hopeful faces, Zara felt a weight beginning to lift from her shoulders. For the first time in years, they had a chance at a real future, not just an escape. "All right," she decided. "We'll stay, at least for now. But we need to be prepared, just in case. We'll save every penny we can, keep our eyes open, and make sure we always have a plan." Her sisters nodded solemnly, the habits of caution too deeply ingrained to abandon completely. But there was joy in their eyes too, a joy Zara hadn't seen since before their mother died. The next morning, Zara found Quinn in the corral, working with a spirited young stallion. She watched from the fence as he moved with the animal, his movements confident yet gentle, establishing trust rather than demanding submission. When he spotted her, he gave the horse a final pat and walked over, his shirt damp with sweat and his face creased in a smile. "Good morning," he greeted her, wiping his brow with his sleeve. "You're up early." "I wanted to talk to you before you got busy with the day's work," Zara replied, suddenly nervous. "About your offer." Quinn's expression grew serious. "And we'd like to stay," she said simply. "My sisters are happier here than they've been in years, and she hesitated. "I feel safe here. That's not something I've felt in a very long time." The smile that broke across Quinn's face was like sunrise over the mountains. "I'm glad," he said, reaching out to cover her hand with his where it rested on the fence. "Very glad." The touch sent a shiver up Zara's arm, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand to clasp his briefly before stepping back. "But there are conditions," she added, forcing herself to focus. "We need to work to earn our keep, no charity." Quinn nodded, respecting her pride. "That's fair. As I said, there's plenty of work to go around. What did you do on your family's farm?" "Everything," Zara replied with a wry smile. "Cooking, cleaning, tending the garden, helping with the livestock, mending, preserving food for winter. Whatever needed doing." "A woman of many talents," Quinn observed, his eyes warm with admiration. "Well, you've seen how Zoe and Zola have found their places. What would you like to focus on?" The question caught Zara off guard. No one had asked what she wanted in so long. I'm not sure, she admitted. I enjoy gardening, and I'm good with numbers. I kept the farm accounts. Mrs. Perkins would be delighted to have help with the kitchen garden, Quinn said. And I could certainly use assistance with the ranch accounts. My sister used to handle that, and I've been muddling through as best I can since she passed. I could look at them today if you'd like, Zara offered. I'd appreciate that. Quinn hesitated, then added, There's something else we should discuss. If you're staying, we should let Sheriff Reed know about your situation. Not the whole town, just Reed. He's a good man, and it would be wise to have him on our side if Vernon Blackfield ever shows up. Zara tensed but forced herself to consider the suggestion rationally. You're right. It would be better if he heard the truth from us first. I'll ride into town tomorrow and speak with him, Quinn promised. You don't have to come if you're not ready. Zara straightened her shoulders. No, I should be there. This is my fight. Quinn's eyes held a mixture of respect and concern. Not anymore, Zara. It's our fight now. The words warmed her from the inside out, chasing away some of the cold fear that had been her constant companion for so long. Perhaps, just perhaps, they really could build a new life here. Over the next few weeks, the Kinnell sisters settled into life at the O'Malley Ranch as if they had always belonged there. Zoe's cooking became a highlight of mealtimes, with even the ranch hands commenting on the improvement in the food. Zola spent her days with the horses, revealing a natural talent that impressed even the most experienced wranglers. Zelda, now fully recovered, took over managing the household accounts, freeing Mrs. Perkins to focus on her other duties. And Zara found herself working alongside Quinn, learning about ranch operations, helping with the accounts, and expanding the kitchen garden to include medicinal herbs and flowers. She discovered a capacity for happiness that had been dormant for years, and each day brought new surprises. The first time she heard Quinn laugh, the way the mountains changed color at sunset, the simple pleasure of work that was appreciated. Their visit to Sheriff Reed had gone better than expected. The grizzled lawman had listened to their story without interruption, then assured them that Vernon Blackfield would find no allies in Challies. I've dealt with men like him before, Reed had told them, his weathered face grim. Bullies who hide their meanness behind a respectable front. He sets foot in my town causing trouble. He'll regret it. As summer progressed into early autumn, Zara found herself growing increasingly aware of Quinn in ways that had nothing to do with gratitude. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle strength in his hands when he helped her from her horse, the depth of his voice when he read aloud by the fire in the evenings. It was a cloudless September day when Quinn asked Zara to ride with him to check on a remote part of the ranch. The cottonwoods along the river were just beginning to turn gold, and the air held the first hints of the coming fall. They rode in companionable silence for a while, following the river upstream into a narrow canyon Zara hadn't visited before. The walls rose high on either side, striped with layers of red and tan stone, and the river rushed noisily over a series of small rapids. It's beautiful, Zara said, reining in her horse to admire the view. I didn't know this was part of your land. It's the northern boundary, Quinn explained, stopping beside her. My father claimed it because of the year-round water access, even though the grazing isn't as good up here. But I've always thought it was the prettiest part of the ranch. He dismounted and tied his horse to a tree, then came around to help Zara down. His hands lingered at her waist a moment longer than necessary, and she felt her cheeks warm. There's something I want to show you, he said, taking her hand and leading her along a narrow path that climbed the canyon wall. The path switchbacked up the steep slope until they emerged onto a small plateau halfway up the canyon side. There, nestled against the rock face, stood a small cabin, its logs weathered to a silvery gray. "My father built this when he first claimed the land," Quinn explained as they approached. "He lived here while he was building the main ranch house. Later, I used to come up here when I needed time to think." He opened the door, revealing a simple one-room interior with a stone fireplace, a narrow bed, a table with 2 chairs, and shelves holding books and supplies. "It's lovely," Zara said, running her fingers along the smooth wooden table. "Peaceful," Quinn nodded, watching her closely. "I thought you might like it. You could use it whenever you need some time alone. I know living with so many people can be overwhelming sometimes." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her deeply. "Thank you. That's very kind." "It's not just kindness, Zara," Quinn said quietly. She looked up, finding him closer than she expected, his blue eyes intent on her face. "What is it then?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think you know," he replied, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've tried to be patient, to give you time to heal and feel safe, but my feelings for you have grown stronger every day." Zara's heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. "Quinn, you don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just wanted you to know. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, it won't change the fact that you and your sisters have a home here for as long as you want it." The sincerity in his voice nearly undid her. "It's not that I don't feel the same," she admitted, her eyes dropping to his chest. "I do, but I'm afraid." "Of what?" he asked, his fingers still lingering near her face. "Of everything," she confessed. "Of Vernon finding us. Of trusting my judgment. I trusted my mother when she married him, and look how that turned out. Of caring for someone and then losing them like we lost our parents." "Those are all valid fears," Quinn acknowledged. "I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen, but I can promise that as long as I'm alive, I'll do everything in my power to keep you and your sisters safe and happy." "That's not something I say lightly, Zara." She believed him. Despite all her caution and hard-won cynicism, she believed him completely. In the months they had known each other, Quinn had never once given her reason to doubt his word or his character. Slowly, hesitantly, she raised her face to his. "I want to trust this," she whispered. "To trust us." Quinn's smile was gentle as he cupped her cheek in his hand. "Then that's where we'll start, one day at a time." When he leaned down to kiss her, Zara met him halfway, her heart soaring with a joy she had almost forgotten was possible. His lips were warm and firm against hers, the kiss tender but full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that since the first week you were here," he admitted. Zara laughed softly. "Even when I was suspicious and argumentative, especially then," he grinned. "You were magnificent, all fire and protectiveness for your sisters. How could I not fall for that?" They stayed at the cabin until late afternoon, talking more freely than they ever had before. Quinn told her about growing up on the ranch, about losing his sister to consumption, about his failed romance with the schoolteacher who couldn't adapt to frontier life. In turn, Zara shared memories of her parents before they died, of protecting her sisters from Vernon's wrath, of the desperate plan they had hatched to escape. "I still worry he'll find us," she admitted as they prepared to return to the main house. "Not as much as before, but the fear is always there in the back of my mind." Quinn helped her onto her horse, his expression serious. "If he does come, he'll find us ready. But Zara, you can't let that fear control your life forever. At some point, you have to decide not to give him that power over you anymore." She nodded, knowing he was right. "I'm working on it. Having you and the ranch and everyone here, it helps more than I can say." As autumn deepened, The relationship between Zara and Quinn blossomed like the late asters in her garden. They were discreet at first, mindful of propriety and the potential gossip in a small community like Challies. But soon enough, their affection was apparent to everyone at the ranch. Mrs. Perkins, after giving Quinn a stern lecture about doing right by that girl, became their staunchest supporter. Zara's sisters were delighted, especially Zelda, who had suspected Quinn's feelings long before Zara admitted her own. "It's like something from a storybook," Zelda sighed one evening as she helped Zara prepare for dinner. "The handsome rancher and the damsel in distress." Zara snorted, pinning up her hair. "Hardly a damsel in distress, and if you call me that in front of Quinn, I'll put frogs in your bed." Zelda just laughed, her face more relaxed and youthful than it had been in years. "Fine, the capable, independent woman who just happened to need a little help." "Better. Much," Zara agreed, smiling at her sister's reflection in the mirror. "Are you really happy here, Zelda, all of you?" "Sometimes I worry I made this decision for all of us without enough consideration." "Are you joking?" Zelda asked incredulously. "Zara, we've never been happier. Zoe's talking about opening a bakery in town someday, did you know? And Mrs. Perkins is teaching her all her recipes. Zola's like a different person with those horses, you know. Jackson's talking about making her his assistant, and me." She hesitated. "Well, I might have my own news soon." Zara turned to face her sister directly. "What news?" Zelda blushed. "Thomas Reed has been calling on me." "The sheriff's son. When did this happen?" "Since the Harvest Festival last month," Zelda admitted. "He asked permission to write to me, and well, he's been visiting every Sunday after church." Zara was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you've been so happy with Quinn, and I wanted to be sure it was serious before I said anything," Zelda explained. "But Thomas is wonderful, Zara. He's nothing like Vernon or any of the men back in Granite Creek. He's kind and thoughtful and makes me laugh." Zara embraced her sister tightly. "Oh, Zelda, I'm so happy for you, truly. I just wish you'd told me sooner." "I'm telling you now," Zelda said, returning the hug. "And you're the first to know, so don't tell Zoe or Zola yet. I want to be sure Thomas's intentions are serious." "How serious are Quinn's intentions?" Zelda asked slyly as they separated. Zara felt her cheeks warm. "We haven't discussed that specifically, but I think very serious. He talks about the future as if I'm definitely in it." The truth was, Quinn had been dropping hints about marriage for weeks, testing the waters to gauge Zara's reaction. She hadn't discouraged him, but she hadn't overtly encouraged the idea either, still held back by lingering fears. That night at dinner, Quinn seemed unusually quiet, his mind clearly elsewhere. After the meal, he asked Zara to join him on the porch, despite the chill in the October air. "Is everything all right?" she asked as they sat side by side on the swing, a woolen blanket draped across their laps. "You've been distracted all evening." Quinn took her hand, his expression grave. "I received a letter from Sheriff Reed today. He's had word from the sheriff in Granite Creek." Zara's blood ran cold. "About Vernon," Quinn nodded. "He's been asking questions, trying to track you down. A horse trader who passed through Challies a few weeks ago mentioned seeing 4 young women matching your descriptions at the Harvest Festival." Fear gripped Zara's heart, but she forced herself to think clearly. "Does he know we're here? At the ranch?" "Not specifically, no. But Reed thinks it's only a matter of time before he makes his way to Challies. He wanted to warn us, give us time to prepare." Zara's mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. "My sisters are as safe here as they can be," Quinn assured her, squeezing her hand. "Reed has deputies watching the roads into town, and everyone at the ranch knows to be on alert for strangers." "But what if it's not enough?" Zara asked, her voice rising with anxiety. "What if he brings men with him?" or convinces the Granite Creek sheriff to issue warrants for our arrest for stealing his horses and money." Quinn turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Zara, listen to me. Red has already spoken with the territorial judge about your situation. If Vernon tries to use the law against you, it won't work. And as for bringing men, this is my land. I have the right to defend it and everyone on it." His certainty should have been comforting, but Zara couldn't shake the dread that had settled over her. "Maybe we should leave," she whispered. "Go somewhere he'd never think to look, California or even further west." "Is that what you want?" Quinn asked quietly. To run again, Zara hesitated, torn between the instinct for flight that had kept them alive and the new life they had built here. "No," she finally admitted. "But I don't want to put anyone in danger either, especially you." Quinn's eyes softened. "Zara Kinnell, when are you going to understand that you're worth fighting for? All of you are. What Vernon did, what he tried to do, it was wrong. Evil. You don't need to spend your life running from him." "Not anymore." "How can you be so sure?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You don't know him. He's vindictive. He won't just give up." "Then he'll have to face me," Quinn said simply. "And Raid and every hand on this ranch and half the town of Challies by now. You're not alone anymore, Zara." She leaned into him, drawing strength from his steady presence. "I'm scared," she confessed. "Not just of Vernon, but of losing everything we've found here, everything I've found with you." Quinn wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. "I know. But I promise you this, whatever happens, we'll face it together. And when it's over, I want you to be my wife, Zara. I've been trying to find the right moment to ask, and maybe this isn't it, but I don't want to wait any longer." Zara pulled back to look at him, stunned. "You're proposing? Now?" A smile quirked the corner of his mouth. "I am. Probably not the romantic scene you imagined, but I want you to know that nothing, not Vernon Blackfield, not anything will change how I feel about you." Tears welled in Zara's eyes, but they were tears of joy mixed with lingering fear. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes, Quinn, I will marry you." He kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, as if sealing their promise against whatever storms might come. The news of their engagement spread quickly through the ranch and into town. Sheriff Reed sent his congratulations along with an update. There had been a sighting of Vernon Blackfield in a town 50 miles east, traveling with 2 other men. He was getting closer. Quinn doubled the guards patrolling the ranch boundaries and made sure everyone was armed. The women, including Zara and her sisters, practiced with shotguns under Mrs. Perkins' surprisingly expert tutelage. "Nursed in a field hospital during the war," the housekeeper explained as she demonstrated how to load and aim. "Learned to defend our patients from deserters and looters." "Never thought I'd need those skills again, but here we are." Despite the tension, life continued. Plans for Zara and Quinn's wedding moved forward, tentatively set for Christmas, assuming the Vernon situation was resolved by then. Zelda's relationship with Thomas Reed became official, with the young man formally asking Quinn for permission to court her. Zoe's baking became so popular that the general store owner in Challies offered to sell her pies and cakes, providing her first independent income. And Zola was officially promoted to assistant stable master, with a corresponding increase in wages. It was the first week of November when Vernon Blackfield finally appeared. Zara was in the kitchen garden, harvesting the last of the root vegetables before the ground froze, when she heard the pounding of hooves approaching the ranch house. She straightened, shading her eyes against the late autumn sun, and felt her heart stop when she recognized the burly figure leading 3 riders up the main drive. "Vernon," she whispered, dropping her basket. She ran toward the house, her skirts gathered in her fists, but Quinn was already emerging onto the porch, rifle in hand. Ranch hands appeared from the barn and bunkhouse. Similarly armed, Vernon and his companions pulled up in front of the house, their horses blowing hard from the pace they'd set. Up close, Vernon looked worse than Zara remembered, his face more bloated from drink, his eyes harder. The men with him had the mean, watchful look of hired guns. "Well, well," Vernon called, his gaze fixing on Zara as she reached the porch steps. "If it ain't my runaway stepdaughter." "Where are your sisters, girl? Hiding like the cowards you are." Quinn stepped in front of Zara, his voice cold. "Mr. Blackfield, I presume. You're trespassing on private property." Vernon spat on the ground. "And you're harboring thieves. These girls stole from me horses, money, valuables." "I've come to take what's mine." "They took what was rightfully theirs," Quinn countered. "Payment for years of unpaid labor and abuse." Vernon's face darkened with anger. "What lies have they been telling you?" "These ungrateful wenches lived under my roof, ate my food, beat us with your fists, worked us like slaves," Zara interrupted, stepping beside Quinn despite his protective arm. "Tried to sell my sisters to your gambling friends. We owe you nothing, Vernon." One of Vernon's companions shifted uncomfortably at this, glancing at his employer with new wariness. "You always were a mouthy one," Vernon growled. "Should have broken that spirit years ago." His hand moved toward the gun at his hip, but before he could draw, the sound of a shotgun being cocked stopped him. Sheriff Reed stood at the edge of the yard, his weapon aimed steadily at Vernon's chest. Behind him were 3 deputies, all armed. "That would be a mistake, Blackfield," Reed warned. "A very final one." Vernon froze, his eyes darting between Reed and Quinn. "This is a family matter, Sheriff. These girls are under my legal guardianship. Not in this territory, they ain't," Reed interrupted. "I've seen the documents. Miss Zara Kinnell is 21 years old, legally an adult. Her adult sisters have chosen to reside with her. There's no guardianship to enforce." "They stole from me," Vernon insisted. "So you say," Reed replied calmly. "They say differently. It would be your word against theirs in court. And I should warn you, Mr. Blackfield, that if it came to that, there would be some very uncomfortable questions about those bruises they arrived with. Questions that might interest the territorial prison warden." The threat hung in the air, clear to everyone present. Vernon's face contorted with fury, but even he could see he was outmatched. "This ain't over," he snarled. "Nobody makes a fool of Vernon Blackfield." "It is over," Quinn stated firmly. "The Kinnell sisters are under my protection now. Miss Zara has agreed to become my wife. If you bother them, any of them again, you'll answer to me, and to Sheriff Reed, and to every man on this ranch." Vernon's eyes widened at the news of the engagement, then narrowed with calculation. "Wife, is it? Well, ain't that convenient? Got yourself a rich husband, Zara." "That was always your plan, wasn't it?" "My plan was to keep my sisters safe from you," Zara replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I've done that. Now leave, Vernon. Go back to Granite Creek and forget we exist." For a moment, Zara thought he might refuse, might draw his gun despite the overwhelming odds. She could see the rage building in him, the wounded pride that had always made him most dangerous. But one of his companions leaned over and muttered something in his ear, and the tension in his posture eased slightly. "Fine," he said finally. "Keep the ungrateful bitches. They ain't worth the bullet it would take to put them down anyway." Quinn took a menacing step forward at the insult, but Reed shook his head slightly. "You have 10 minutes to get off O'Malley land," Reed informed Vernon. "After that, you'll be shot as trespassers, and don't bother stopping in Challies. You're not welcome there either." Vernon glared at them all one last time, his gaze lingering hatefully on Zara. "You'll regret this," he promised. "All of you." Then he wheeled his horse around and rode away, his companions following reluctantly behind. Reed sent 2 deputies to escort them to the territorial border, with instructions not to let them out of sight until they were well away from Challies. As the dust from their departure settled, Zara felt her knees weaken. Quinn was there immediately, his arm around her waist supporting her. "It's over," he murmured, leading her to the porch steps to sit down. "He's gone, Zara." She nodded, still too shaken to speak. Sheriff Reed approached, holstering his shotgun. "He'll be back," Zara finally said, looking up at both men. "You don't know him like I do. This was too easy." Reed stroked his mustache thoughtfully. "Maybe, but he'll find a different reception if he does. Word travels fast in these parts. By nightfall, every settlement between here and the territorial line will know to watch for him." "And we'll be ready," Quinn added, his hand squeezing hers reassuringly. "But Zara, you can't live in fear of him forever. At some point, you have to trust that we've built something stronger than his hatred." She knew he was right. The Vernon who had just ridden away was not the all-powerful tyrant she had feared for so long. He was just a mean, aging bully, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. For the first time, she could imagine a future truly free of his shadow. The door to the ranch house burst open and Zara's sisters rushed out, their faces pale with worry. They had been watching from the windows, kept inside by Quinn's insistence. "Is he really gone?" Zelda asked, her voice small. Zara stood and embraced her sister. "Yes. And if he comes back, he'll find us ready." Zoe and Zola joined the hug, the 4 of them clinging to each other as they had so many times before, but this time in relief rather than fear. "Quinn asked me to marry him," Zara told them, her voice muffled against Zelda's hair. "I said yes." The announcement broke the tension, and suddenly they were all talking at once, excitement displacing the last traces of fear. Mrs. Perkins emerged from the house declaring they needed a celebration dinner, and the ranch hands, sensing the danger had passed, began to drift back to their duties with much back-slapping and congratulations for Quinn. That night, after a festive meal that felt like their first true freedom, Quinn and Zara walked along the river in the moonlight. The air was crisp with approaching winter, their breath forming small clouds in the darkness. "Are you still worried?" Quinn asked, his arm around her shoulders. Zara considered the question honestly. "Yes," she admitted, "but not as much as before. Seeing him today, he seemed smaller somehow, less powerful." "Because he is," Quinn said. "His power came from isolation and fear. You don't have either of those things anymore." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Because of you. Because you took in 4 strangers and gave them a home and a chance at a real life." Quinn shook his head, his expression serious in the silvery light. "No, Zara. I may have offered a safe haven, but you and your sisters built your new lives yourselves. Your courage, your determination, your willingness to trust again after everything you've been through, that's what made the difference." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle. "Do you know what I thought the first time I saw you? Standing there by the river, exhausted but still so fierce, ready to protect your sisters at any cost." "What?" she whispered. "I thought, there's a woman who doesn't know how strong she really is. And every day since then has only proven me right." His thumbs stroked her cheeks tenderly. "I don't want you to think I saved you, Zara. If anything, it was the other way around." Tears pricked Zara's eyes at his words. "How did I save you?" "By reminding me what matters," he said simply. "After Maeve died, I was just existing, running the ranch, going through the motions, but not really living. Then you and your sisters arrived, and suddenly the house was full of life again. You brought purpose back into my world." Zara stood on tiptoe to kiss him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. When they finally broke apart, she smiled up at him, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "So, Christmas wedding?" she asked. "Or should we wait until spring?" Quinn laughed, the sound echoing across the water. Christmas, definitely. I've waited long enough to make you my wife, Zara Kinnell. Zara O'Malley, she corrected, testing the name on her tongue. I like the sound of that. True to his word, Vernon Blackfield did return, but not in the way any of them expected. 3 weeks after his confrontation at the ranch, Sheriff Reed received a telegraph from the Granite Creek Sheriff. Vernon had been found dead in his farmhouse, apparently the victim of a drunken fall down the cellar stairs. No foul play was suspected, given his known drinking habits. The news brought complicated emotions for the Kinnell sisters. There was relief, certainly, but also a strange sense of anticlimax. The monster of their nightmares had died not in a dramatic confrontation, but in a pathetic, solitary accident. I don't know what to feel, Zelda confessed as the 4 sisters sat together in the parlor after hearing the news. I hated him for so long, but I never wished him dead, not really. I did, Zoe said flatly. After what he tried to do to us, I wished him dead every night. Does that make me a terrible person? No, Zara assured her, taking her hand. It makes you human. He hurt us, all of us, in ways that will take a long time to heal. But now we can truly move forward. He can't hurt anyone else ever again. What about the farm? Zola asked practically. Do we inherit it? Not that I want to go back, but legally. Sheriff Reed is looking into that, Zara explained. Since Vernon never formally adopted us and our mothers will left everything to us in the event of her death, there's a good chance the farm is legally ours. We could sell it. The possibility of financial independence, of having resources of their own, was appealing. But as they discussed it, Zara realized that none of them considered leaving the O'Malley ranch, regardless of what happened with their former home. This was where they belonged now. The wedding of Zara Kinnell and Quinn O'Malley took place on Christmas Day, 1878, in the parlor of the ranch house, decorated with evergreen boughs, red ribbons, and candles that glowed warmly against the winter darkness outside. Snow had fallen the night before, transforming the landscape into a glistening white expanse that sparkled in the morning sunlight. Zara wore a dress of ivory satin that Mrs. Perkins and her sisters had worked on secretly for weeks. Her dark hair was adorned with a wreath of winter berries and white flowers from the greenhouse Quinn had built as a wedding present. Sheriff Reed performed the ceremony, his deep voice solemn as he led them through their vows. Quinn, handsome in a new black suit, couldn't take his eyes off his bride. I, Quinn O'Malley, take you, Zara Kinnell, to be my lawfully wedded wife, he said clearly, his voice steady with conviction. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. When it was Zara's turn, her voice trembled slightly at first but grew stronger with each word. I, Zara Kinnell, take you, Quinn O'Malley, to be my lawfully wedded husband. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. As Quinn slipped the gold band onto her finger, one that had belonged to his mother, Zara felt a sense of completeness she had never known before. This was not just the end of her old life, but the true beginning of a new one, built on love and trust rather than fear. After the ceremony, the ranch house filled with celebration. Everyone from the ranch was there, along with half the town of Challies. Thomas Reid danced with Zelda, his intentions toward her growing more serious by the day. Zoe displayed a magnificent wedding cake that drew gasps of admiration from all the guests. Zola introduced her sisters to a shy young wrangler named Daniel, who had recently joined the ranch staff, and who looked at her with undisguised admiration. Late in the evening, as the celebration continued, Quinn led Zara away from the noise and laughter to the porch. The night was clear and cold, the stars brilliant above the snow-covered mountains. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they gazed out at the wintry landscape. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, leaning back against his chest. "It still feels like a dream sometimes, that all of us found safety here, that I found you." "Not a dream," Quinn assured her, placing a kiss on her temple. "Just the life you always deserved." They stood there in comfortable silence, listening to the music and laughter flowing from inside the house, until Quinn spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "I was thinking about the cabin up in the canyon," he said. "I'd like to expand it, make it a proper home, not to live in all the time, but as a retreat for us, a place we could go when we need time alone together." Zara turned in his arms to face him, touched by the thought. "I'd like that very much. And maybe, someday, our children could use it too," he added hesitantly. "If you want children, that is." The mention of children, their children, filled Zara with a joy she couldn't express in words. Instead, she kissed him, her new husband, under the vast Idaho sky, surrounded by the land that had become their sanctuary and their future. The seasons turned, and with them, the lives of the Kinnell sisters continued to evolve. Spring brought the news that the Granite Creek farm was indeed legally theirs. They sold it to a young family from back east, using the proceeds to establish savings accounts for each sister and to invest in improvements to the ranch. Zelda and Thomas Reed were married the following summer in a ceremony by the river, with Zara standing proudly as her sister's matron of honor. By then, Zara was carrying her and Quinn's first child, a fact that filled the entire ranch with anticipation. Zoe's baking business flourished to the point that she and Quinn went into partnership to open Challies' first proper bakery in a small building on the main street. Her pies became famous throughout the territory, with travelers going out of their way to sample them. Zola's gift with horses led to the O'Malley Ranch developing a reputation for breeding and training the finest stock in the region. She and Daniel, the young wrangler, developed a relationship that progressed from friendship to courtship under the amused but approving eyes of their extended family. On a crisp October day in 1879, Zara gave birth to a son they named James, after Quinn's father. Mrs. Perkins declared him the finest baby she'd ever seen, and Quinn walked around for weeks with a proud, slightly dazed expression that made everyone laugh. As Zara nursed her son in the rocking chair by the window one evening, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Just over a year and a half had passed since she and her sisters had fled Granite Creek in the middle of the night, terrified and desperate. Now each of them had found not just safety but love, purpose, and community. Quinn entered the nursery quietly, pausing in the doorway to watch his wife and son. The look of tenderness on his face made Zara's heart swell with love. "You two are a beautiful sight," he said softly, crossing the room to kneel beside the rocking chair. Zara smiled down at him, then at their sleeping son. "I was just thinking about everything that's happened, how different our lives are now from what I ever imagined possible." Quinn took her free hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Any regrets?" "Not a single one," she replied without hesitation. "Every step, even the painful ones, led us here. How could I regret that?" he smiled, reaching out to stroke James's downy head. "Zelda and Thomas are coming for dinner tomorrow, and Zoe mentioned bringing a new friend, that young doctor who just moved to town. I think she has her eye on him." Zara laughed softly. "Good. He seems nice, and he's certainly smitten with her pies if nothing else. And Zola." Quinn hesitated. "Well, Daniel spoke with me today, asked for my blessing to court her officially." "About time," Zara said warmly. "They've been dancing around each other for months. What did you tell him?" "That he'd better treat her like the treasure she is, or he'd answer to all of us," Quinn replied with a grin. "But yes, I gave my blessing. He's a good man." Zara nodded, content. Her family was thriving, growing in ways she could never have predicted when they fled that farmhouse in the night. The ranch had become a true home, not just for the four sisters, but for all who lived and worked there. Later, as she and Quinn stood on the porch watching the stars emerge in the vast Idaho sky, Zara felt a peace that went bone deep. Vernon's shadow had faded completely, replaced by the warm glow of the life they had built together. "I love you, Quinn O'Malley," she said simply, leaning into his embrace. "And I love you, Zara O'Malley," he replied, his arms tightening around her, more with each passing day. As the years passed, the O'Malley ranch prospered and expanded. Quinn and Zara welcomed two more children, a daughter, Catherine, born in 1881, and another son, William, in 1883. Their family became known throughout the territory not just for their successful ranch and business ventures, but for their generosity and community spirit. The four Kinnell sisters, who had once huddled together against a world that seemed determined to break them, grew into strong, independent women who never forgot what they had overcome. Their bond remained unbreakable, a foundation upon which they built lives filled with love, purpose, and joy. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the children were asleep, Zara would often find Quinn on the porch, gazing out at the land they shared. She would join him there, their hands automatically finding each other's, and together they would watch the sun set over the mountains that had witnessed their journey from strangers to family, from fear to hope, from isolation to belonging. It was, Zara reflected, a journey that had begun with a desperate midnight escape, but had led to the richest kind of freedom, the freedom to love and be loved, without reservation or fear, until the end of their days.